Cameron Doyle had spent 22 years behind the wheel of a semi-truck, a life that wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. He had a wife, Dana, who never seemed to appreciate the sacrifices he made, especially the long hours on the road. Cameron had been feeling chest pains for weeks, but chalked it up to the stress of his job, the sleepless nights, and bad coffee. That was until the pain became unbearable. Somewhere near Omaha, he was forced to pull over. Calling 911, he was airlifted to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The doctors worked frantically, and when Cameron passed out, he heard the words he never expected. "We're losing him." 2 days later, he woke up in a hospital bed, tubes running into his arms and a nurse explaining that he'd flatlined twice. His life had been hanging by a thread. He checked his phone and saw only one message from Dana, a screenshot of their joint bank account which was now empty. 0.00, the balance read, and below it Dana had written, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." The message stunned him, but Cameron wasn't angry. He was tired. He sent her a simple thumbs-up emoji. It was the only thing he could muster. The emotional weight of it all pressed down on him. Dana had drained their accounts, taking everything from their emergency fund to his retirement savings. The next day, when the doctor advised him to rest for 6 weeks and avoid stress, Cameron knew he couldn't return home. He reached out to his brother Jeff, a construction foreman, and explained his situation. "Need a place to crash for a few days and don't tell Dana," Cameron said. Jeff agreed, unaware of the storm that was brewing. Cameron's time at Jeff's place wasn't spent relaxing. He couldn't sleep, his mind racing through every small sign he'd missed in his marriage. Dana had become distant over the years, no longer asking when he'd be home. She took trips with friends he'd never met, and the texts he sent her on the road had become shorter and more detached. Days later, a text came from their neighbor, Harold. "Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Dana's got some guy over. Thought you should know." Cameron didn't respond, the words sitting like lead in his stomach. He felt numb, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about the money. This was bigger. A visit to the bank confirmed his worst fears. When he explained his situation to a fraud specialist, the bank informed him that, due to the joint nature of the account, they couldn't easily freeze the funds. However, they did start the process of investigating the transaction. With the assistance of a lawyer friend of Jeff's, Cameron began digging into their finances. He started looking into accounts Dana didn't know he had, accounts that she'd never shown interest in. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became. Dana had been planning something. Cameron began to feel the weight of the betrayal. It wasn't just about money, it was about control. Dana had been preparing for something, and it wasn't a good sign. That night after dinner, a text from Dana came through asking where he was. He ignored it. This was no longer just about saving his money, it was about saving himself. A week passed before Cameron made his next move. He'd been gathering evidence, piecing together a puzzle that Dana had tried so hard to keep hidden. Dana had taken everything, but in doing so, she had also given Cameron the space to fight back. He went through their old accounts and found a hidden account Dana had opened 18 months ago. Regular deposits just under the $10,000 reporting threshold, classic money laundering signs. Dana had been preparing for this moment. She knew exactly what she was doing. Then there was Harold. Cameron's gut had told him something was wrong, but now he had the proof. Blake, the lawyer, was instrumental in discovering that Harold had been involved in Dana's scheme. Harold, the neighbor who had been acting concerned, was part of the plot. The same man who had texted Cameron pretending to be worried about his wife. But the revelations didn't stop there. Blake, Cameron's lawyer, handed him a credit card statement with a hotel charge in Minneapolis. The name on the reservation wasn't Dana's, it was Harold's. Cameron had been away in Seattle that week, unaware that Dana had been spending time with the very man who was helping her deceive him. The betrayal wasn't just with Dana. It was a coordinated effort, and it was being carried out behind his back. Blake made a grim assessment. They were ready to leave, Cameron. They thought you wouldn't survive. Cameron was done being a passive observer in his own life. He'd spent too many years working hard for a family that didn't care. Now, he had the chance to fight back. Blake filed an emergency injunction to freeze the assets Dana had taken. The plan was simple: prevent her from spending any more of the stolen money. The stakes were high. If Dana and Harold were allowed to move forward, they could disappear with everything. The day of the court hearing, Dana and her attorney Patricia Wells were already in sharp suits, looking confident. Cameron, on the other hand, wore his best tie, the only one he owned, kept in his truck for unexpected funerals. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harmon, an older man with a stern demeanor, read through the case with a quiet intensity. Patricia Wells attempted to downplay Dana's actions, claiming that she had been under emotional distress and acted out of fear. But when the judge asked her if she knew Cameron was unconscious when she withdrew the money, the tension in the room skyrocketed. Dana's defense crumbled when Wells confirmed Dana's knowledge. The judge wasn't convinced. He froze the assets, halting any further transactions and preventing Dana from accessing any more of Cameron's savings. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Cameron felt a surge of power for the first time since this whole ordeal had started. Dana wasn't done yet. 2 weeks after the court ruling, she tried to contact Cameron directly. But this time, he wasn't the man she had known before. He didn't respond. Instead, he let her stew in her own desperation. Dana had been playing a dangerous game, but now she was the one left exposed. Cameron had moved back into the house, his house now. The court had awarded him full control, and Dana had been left with nothing. Blake, his lawyer, had found additional evidence. Harold was liquidating assets, preparing to flee. Dana was trying to cover her tracks, but she had already been caught. It was clear now. This wasn't just about money. Dana had been preparing for this moment for months, and Harold had been helping her every step of the way. They both thought they had the upper hand, but they were wrong. In a final dramatic turn, Dana offered a settlement. She would return half of the funds in exchange for half of the house's equity. Blake advised Cameron to wait. Let them sweat it out. In the end, Dana was forced to face the consequences of her actions. She was left with nothing but a fraction of what she thought she could steal. And Cameron? He walked away with control of his life again, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Cameron had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes people you love and trust can betray you when you least expect it. But he also realized that life had given him a second chance. What Dana had taken from him, he'd taken back. And while it hadn't been easy, Cameron was stronger for it. Life had a way of throwing punches, but Cameron was no longer afraid of fighting back.